morning, and welcome to another episode of Hoops All Dragons. It is 7:30 a.m. in Los Angeles, and Varun has dragged me out of bed for another...
For the time that you agreed to.
For a time that I agreed to, yes, I did make this bed. We're here. Hello, I am Lisa.
I'm Varun.
And we've got some more D&D stories for you. Yeah!
And we have a special guest today. We have the person who's done all of our art on our YouTube channel,
the legend,
on the podcast, the one, the only, Azif On Q.
You flatter me. Hello. Wow, pretty cool actually. Stuck in the tube.
Can we start like a mythos that like whenever we have our guests on, it's like they have to pretend like we're like in some like funky spaceship or something. I don't know, and they have to like always comment on it.
That'd be awesome.
Great portholes.
All right, so before we get into the D&D stories, Lisa, what you been up to?
God, nothing ever.
It's always polite to ask.
Yeah, no, of course. I got some stuff coming up that I can eventually talk about, but for right now, I'm just living every day.
That sounds so mysterious.
I know, right? But I haven't watched anything. My TV's still not up in my apartment. I bought a bookshelf at IKEA. I'm gonna have to build it today at some point. That's about the most excitement that I get these days.
All right.
What about you, Varun? Tell me about your Gundams.
We had the Gundam contest at Flynn's, so I won 3rd place. Lucas here won 2nd place, and one of our friends won 3rd place by just blowing us all out of the water.
Oh, I know exactly.
You mean won 1st place?
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a contest. Like his was by far the best.
Yeah, the guy showed up
we
with
made
a 12
like
by 12.
single models, and he made like an entire diorama using like multiple kits and like fake terrain and all of that.
Show off.
Yeah, pretty much.
What was that one guy
Good
that
for
walked
him.
in? He said, "Oh yeah, this guy brought a bomb to a gunfight," and I completely agree. He just blew away the competition.
Yeah, it was so fun. The whole event was pretty cool. And then other than that, I've been playing more Don't Starve. I still haven't even made through an entire year in that game. It's super hard.
You play Don't Starve?
Yeah, I just started. It is very hard.
Oh, I couldn't even get past 3 months.
I've made it through the first 3 seasons. I've never gotten to summer yet.
My God, actually, just like the mods in that game by itself is actually pretty astounding.
Yeah, it's fun. It's weird, but it's fun.
The art style is what got me.
Yeah, it has a very unique art style.
What was that one? It was like the robot. I kind of like playing that. That one character, W8.
I like the librarian because she just knows everything from the start.
Overall, like, yeah, nothing too good on my side either. I mean, heck, we should play Don't Starve sometime because it comes from it.
I have it on the Switch, so I don't know if they have the co-op on there yet.
Don't Starve Together is actually pretty good.
That's cool. The like team version, yeah.
What else have you been up to actually?
That's pretty much it. And you and I introduced you to Gundam Extreme versus Maxi Boost, so I've got you addicted to that.
Addicted's an understatement. I've been trying to tell everybody at the arcade about that game. I've tried to tell.
We're going to do a tournament eventually.
Our buddy Noel, everybody, just so we could get like some type of arcade thing going on where we can all play.
Oh yeah, yeah. They have a setup where we can actually do 4 locally, so we'll figure that out. But you've been up to anything else not arcade related as of?
Aside from that, I've actually been trying to finish my backlog of comics and graphic novels. I'm finally finishing up Bone, a book that I've been like trying to find for the longest time just for its art style. And I finally got it. I finally just take the time to actually have a little bit of me time, cuddle up underneath the sheets, get a little warm lamp going, and enjoy like this wonderful world that's actually inspired some of my own D&D stories.
Ooh,
Oh,
interesting.
yes. So let's get into it, shall we?
Alright.
So Azif, you're a nerd. Why?
Yeah.
What happened? Who hurt you?
Probably everybody.
Who was the radioactive nerd that bit you to turn you into a nerd?
Radioactive nerd? Oh man. Actually, this is like the saddest origin story. I didn't even get to play my first game of D&D. Like,
What?
yeah, a while back, there was this comic shop next to my high school called Heroes and Villains. And,
Okay.
Yeah,
I
you
know
might
it. I'm
remember
aware of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was pretty good. It was like right next to Coral Springs High, and during that time, my friends all got invited to play D&D, but not me though. Even if I did learn how to play, I probably wouldn't have even gotten invited because the DM was the older brother of a friend who really didn't like me. I don't blame him. I was kind of a jerk at the time, but still, I would listen at the end of the table while I read manga, and I tune in from time to time to these like fascinating situations. And he came up with all of it. These games lasted a while, and I didn't even know that they were one shots. So my origin story was the villain kind of like ignored me. I wanted to get my revenge.
So I started running my own games.
Yeah, where I wouldn't like disinclude anybody. I wanted everybody to be doing, and that's kind of what I do now.
Okay. So I'm a little familiar with your D&D, your DM starting story. But did you play before you started DMing?
Actually, no. When it came to like D&D, I was a little bit confused with all these. Like, it was the macros of everything. Like my alligator brain, when somebody like puts a book in front of me and there's like rules, and the rule book is really freaking thick, it overwhelmed me. I learned to be a DM first before I became a player because I was the only one in my friend group that had DM. Like people forced me to DM.
Okay. So
Oh, so you got pushed into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
you got pushed.
Like it was pretty intense, and at first it was like really overwhelming. But like 5th edition at least made it easier from what I learned, so it wasn't as bad. Like, God forbid if I started with 4th edition.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of my experience. So yeah, how'd you start for your friend group? How'd you start DMing for them?
Well, it turns out I always made games for my friends. I didn't know I was a DM. I just made games ever since I was a kid. I guess I can say that it started in high school. I usually made small party games for friends, variations of card games. I'd make Jeopardy-inspired games. I remember actually picking up this boring literature game from my old English teacher, who would have us play it in high school when we had nothing to do. I looked through the rules, and it was basically like my own study project. I made an abridged version of that game, added more categories like comics, graphic novels, and manga for like the modern kids that didn't really want to read like the classical literature. The teacher loved it, and I got extra credit. So when I found out like DMs operate and how they do it, and what the term homebrew even was, it actually made the transition to being a DM like less stressful. I wasn't forced to do it; I was actually enjoying it.
Okay.
That's good. So it sounds like you already had a sort of penchant for taking a rule set and just going, I like this, but what if it was different?
Yeah. I actually encourage the idea that like games, like really good games, should be accessible to like everybody. That's why I try to like make it more one-shot based. Up until now, like I used to run one-shots mostly because like people have schedules, jobs, and, like one-shots. You can just go there, play the game, and you don't have to worry about committing every week.
Okay. What was that first game or group like?
Complete and total chaos.
Good.
We had to keep flipping through like the manual, what we could do, and like it was super slowed down to the point that like combat was more like player versus player at that point, or what the player couldn't do, people stopping each other, interrupting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, my first DM experience, oh god, I'm getting PTSD. It's like, no, you can't do that. Hold on. It takes 20 minutes to look through the page of a fighter. Oh. But, like, after that, it got a little bit easier, and when I found that, like, one-shots, you don't really need to use 5th edition. You can just, like, use pre-generated characters, like Colonel Mustard from Clue. I like including that, like, in murder mystery situations. It makes it a lot easier when you don't have to, like, rely and be a rules lawyer 100% of the time. Homebrew is what I do best. I wasn't even really that good of a DM to begin with.
I've played some of your games. You're definitely getting better.
You helped a lot, actually. I don't know if I can say it here, but it's SPERM. You know, like the society.
Yeah, we talk about it.
We've mentioned the SPER method a lot.
Oh God, it helped a lot. Like it really did.
We're trying to get the general populace to drink the sperm juice.
Have everyone adopt the sperm method.
Terrible.
Well,
I hate it here.
It made things so much easier, especially since like later games players would actually ask me about politics, and I'm like, oh no, thank God, you saved my life.
So, I was gonna say, so let's get into like the details. So, at our local gaming store, Flynn's, you were one of the first dungeon masters to kind of volunteer and say, hey, I'll run something. So, what was that like?
The first time, it was actually kind of like an interview, but on the opposite end. I wanted to actually, like, first appearance, I wanted to let these people know that I'm not like a rules lawyer, that I enjoy making games. Like, this isn't something I have to do. I like doing it. And that I wanted to, like, see their creativity of, like, these characters they make. So, the first experience, I met, like, a ragtag group of people that only, like, 2 or 3 actually still show up to my games because you have, like, people come in and out.
Yeah, people cycle in and out.
It would be our buddy Omel, Shimon, Chris, and so from there they kept on coming back to these games. And, like, I asked, like, whoa, you actually like this? And I'm like, yeah. And that's actually, like, good. That made me, like, that boosted my ego a lot. Like, telling somebody your game is good when you're just starting off as a DM, oh, heck yeah.
That's good. What was it? What was?
What is it? It's you. When you described yourself as like, I'm not a regular DM. I'm a cool DM.
I'm a cool DM. I'll say it right now. There are no cool DMs. Not even Matt Mercer is a cool DM.
No, not at all.
So, what was your creative process like? Like setting it up for the first time?
The creative process, it goes as much as like every one I usually do. Always starts and ends with coffee, I'll tell you that. Like lots of coffee. But in seriousness, the process for every single one of the games, even the one shot I made, I just take time to actually relax. And I go on walks, or I sit down in libraries like Barnes & Noble, bookstores, and funnel information of things I find most interesting down on paper, usually on notepads or the note app on my phone. Let's see, I remember a couple weeks ago, I had to learn how to make a desert, and I never run a desert encounter before. I didn't know how deserts operate, the ecosystem, or how I even survive if you drop me in one. So I did whatever any caffeinated weirdo did at 3 a.m. I just made my own desert.
So what was your desert like?
I studied cacti, indigenous animals of multiple deserts, natural phenomenons, and even how certain chemicals react towards certain minerals. And so I said, screw it. This desert is going to be like Australia, Mexico, and Texas. Also with some Mars. So I just culminated all this together into this like harsh ecosystem that barely anything can survive in.
And have the players actually run that yet?
Yes, actually. They're currently on a giant millipede going through the desert to reach their destination.
So give us those details. Like, how has the desert been going?
They almost died. There's lots of things that kill them, that want to kill them at least, and
Sounds like Australia.
They're not enemies. I can tell you that. The things that are trying to kill them are thunderstorms, the natural environments, the toxic minerals, the gases. Like, I had to study a lot of stuff. Let's see. Probably the best example I can give, something similar, because I don't want to spoil the players in case they're listening to this.
It's fine.
Chemistry still applies in D&D, and it is the funniest freaking thing you can probably ever do. Like, example, I could, let's see, a couple months back, a few other players I played with encountered a giant enemy golem in an underwater cave. I told them this cavern is rich with limestone, and that the golem was made of limestone too. Player's a wizard and casts Acid Splash. After damage is calculated, I tell them that the golem, because of chemical reactions, has grown sharp white crystals all over its body. Congratulations, you made it tougher and harder.
They didn't try, like, fireballing it.
Yeah, they did. Surprisingly, there is a player who plays a sorcerer that doesn't just fireball everything they do, like anything they see. I appreciate that. We know a player that does that.
Yeah.
I have full respect for their destructive power.
So yeah, you do a lot of homebrew stuff, obviously. You mentioned it a couple times. So, what are some of the best, like the best reactions you've gotten to your homebrew stuff?
Best reactions would be actually more or less the homebrew aspect of subverting their expectations. I can make the world magical as much as I want, but I actually kind of like messing things around and including twists. You played like one game of the whole Baskerville campaign, where it's just them trying to make it night by night in a town that's very deadly, surviving each night by working odd jobs.
I remember there was one castle we played with that was essentially upside down. We were playing through it, and then we Castlevania'd our way to like a certain puzzle, and then the entire place flips upside down.
Yeah, I got that from Symphony of the Night.
And then there's something about a church spider? I wasn't there for that one. I just heard about that. What happened there?
Church spider is... The players found themselves in a town, and they had no money, and no place to stay, and at night, the monsters skulk the streets when the fog rolls in. This whole town works on a bartering system, taken from Bone, the book. To earn enough money, they have to find themselves in like odd jobs, and they have to do this through a bar with a local job board. From here, the players could pick whatever they wanted, whichever job they wanted or seemed interesting to them at the time. And one of them was to repair a malfunctioned church bell on the other side of town. They rendezvous and meet at night, and they're greeted in this giant cathedral. It wasn't just a small-town church, and they have to all work together to replace the old bell with a new one. Seems easy enough. Little do they know, the bell, when they try to replace it, the bell at the top is a giant spider. They run, they kill it, they do whatever they can, they break the new bell, they have to pay for it. Just kidding, they don't have to do that last part. But they get down, and through a series of events, I made sure specifically that only if someone did this, a giant church spider would wake up. If you somehow rushed over and were dumb enough to play the piano, you would wake up a giant church spider about 60 feet tall up in the air.
And from your drawings, I think that's a giant spider with a church on its back, right?
Correct.
So, how did the players take this?
Not well. At all, actually. Because it had to be a specific thing. Only if you did that thing that I didn't expect anyone else to do would this happen. You basically just, if you went and played the church organ, it would summon this freaking thing. I didn't expect anybody to be dumb enough to actually play that. And
And guess what?
Yeah. I just put that down as a joke. Like, oh yeah, play the right keys, giant church spider comes out. Which would have been a regular encounter if they had not done that. They would have just fought, I don't know, the priests that had been hypnotized by this church. So they didn't expect that.
How did they deal with it?
Well, again, I had to learn how like spiders operate. They have multiple legs. They have 8, but I learned that daddy long legs, if you like clip off the legs one by one, they actually adapt in how they walk. So pluck out one, they'll like have like a little bouncy effect. Pluck out 2, they'll like wobble, but they adapt to it. So their idea was take out each one of its legs, and they did that. But it caused it to wobble to a point that they'd have to constantly roll dexterity to make sure they don't fall or get knocked prone while inside the top of a giant spider. They had to jump from leg to leg and break off each one of its legs, at least 4, half of it to send it careening down on the town.
And then what?
Well, it left a giant crater in the middle of the city. To this day, it's probably still there. It's ridiculous, I'm sorry.
No, I love this. I really do. The church on the back of the spider concept, it's very like Guillermo del Toro, so I'm very into it. So you say that you like mostly play one-shots, right? You mostly run one-shots.
Correct. And so I got encouraged to make the one-shot a campaign.
By the players, right?
Correct.
Interesting. Because I was going to ask, like, your one-shots, do you tend to, do you have, like, a sort of campaign setting, or do you have, like, a setting that you've created and you play all of your one-shots in that same sort of world? Or do you create new little, like, pocket sort of worlds for each one-shot that you run?
I guess it's somewhere in the middle where, based on the predicament that the players are in, anybody can join in, and it's technically, for that session, its own one-shot. It could be... narratively speaking, the players who have been playing this campaign week by week, they are trying to get from point A to point B, but any random player can jump in and just help them as per like job requests and being indebted to the mob. So this random player that would join in, they would have their own little one-shot unique to them, because each little each week is basically its own encounter. So I try to incorporate like making sure that if any new player joins in, they shouldn't be too confused.
So you play it very X-Files. It's Monster of the Week, but you do also have that overarching like lore for those who follow along that closely.
Correct. I actually like that description. I'm gonna start.
Yeah, because I mean that's the X-Files / like Star Trek Next Generation model, where it's like you have your monster of the week or your situation of the week, where like anyone can join in at any moment, and you know have an idea of what's going on at least for that episode or for that session.
Yeah,
but then for those people who follow along for all of the sessions, they get rewarded with a more overarching plotline. And that is a really interesting way to approach it, especially since you do play in that context of the gaming store.
Yeah, I had to just work around that, especially since, like, in the early weeks we were working at Flynn's, I encountered players leaving or not showing up again. So I wanted to at least benefit the players that do commit to going every week, and also making sure that new players aren't really all that confused.
Although, you made some of the stuff have effects lower down the line. Because there was some big boss encounter, and the spider was supposed to play a role in there, but it was dead by the time that was supposed to be happening. So the players' actions in the past actually did affect things down the line.
Correct. For context, they were fighting a giant kaiju. Kaiju's one of the effects was to summon a giant church spider. But seeing as how the players had already taken care of it, the action, this legendary action, was nullified. It wasted its legendary action, and the players were rewarded. At least not for taking the easy way out.
So, you're fairly seasoned as a DM at this point. You've been running for a while. So, what's your advice to new players or new DMs trying to get into the game?
For new players, I encourage you to at least be very creative in the way that you design your character. When I first started out, at least, I was making these generic characters that I would play, like that have like rough backstories, and, you know, the typical rogue who has to get revenge for everyone that's ever pet its cat inappropriately on top of the head, like stuff like that. Like these typical characters. Be more creative in the way you like your characters. Don't make a character for the setting. Make a character for yourself. It's much more beneficial to get attached to that character. If I had known that ahead of time, I probably would have enjoyed like just overall being a player in D&D when I finally became a player. For new DMs, I recommend you absorb all the information you can, but at least the ones you enjoy. When you make your settings, try to add a little bit of your own like personal touches, something, a little bit of yourself in that world, because you are making this world, but the players are the ones that are giving it life. So it's that mutual relationship that makes these worlds even better. So take in all the information that you find interesting and apply it to your world. It makes it so you have those little glimmers and sparkles in your eyes. Players will notice that.
All right. And Lucy, you got anything?
That's lovely. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially the same question I always ask, which is, you know, what advice would you give yourself at the beginning of your sort of D&D DM's journey?
I should have told myself to learn the sperm method.
Oh, jeez. Well, you're not wrong.
If I had known that ahead of time, it would have made world building significantly easier. And I'm surprised I actually made it this far without it. And Varun pointed out certain flaws in it, and I'm like, oh. So I went back to previous parts of the world I'd already completed, touched them up, and if the players ever decide to go back, or if new players I encounter want to go to that area, it's more prim and polished now. They can actually immerse themselves a lot more.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that's very validating.
Yeah. And you're actually one of the listeners, so you got this from a previous episode of Oops All Dragons. So if you've gotten this far, but you haven't listened to the old episodes, go ahead and listen to them.
They're useful.
Yeah.
Encouraging.
Alright. Anything else you want to leave off on, Azif?
Essentially, I think that you should probably actually be a DM at least once in your lifetime. Try it. It's a whole world-opening experience. People think that the DM doesn't play. The DM plays more than he plays. And we gotta actually start incorporating that into the mindset. Because I know a lot of people that don't want to DM because they would rather be playing the game. Quote.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely something that we touch on a lot on the cast is like, you know, the DM is as much a player as the player characters. And there's this like attitude of like us versus them a little bit sometimes when you talk to people, where, you know, even people who are often DMs think of themselves as not players.
Like separate.
And that's like not entirely fair even for yourself if you're you know, not seeing yourself as someone who is playing a game and enjoying yourself.
Yeah, and that your enjoyment matters.
Oh, I agree. We're making this world together. We might as well like actually have that experience.
Yeah.
Other than that, I learned a lot from you guys, and I especially want to keep on making more art for this channel. Just an FYI, the whole banner is going to improve, and I'm looking forward to actually first season if you guys continue. I'll try to make it so like it's a different colored dragon, and Varun's character is caught in another predicament.
Some other terrible thing.
And I continue to just be, you know, as far away from the action as possible. as the mage.
Yeah, and on the DM thing, our previous guest, Caitlin, she went through that. She was a DM for the first time with us, and she realized she does not like DMing.
Really?
She's like, "Yep, I ran it. That was kind of fun. I never want to do that again."
Oh,
Which I feel it. I get it. I've been there. I've done that. I'll probably DM again just because I will have to. But God, it's not my favorite.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good as a DM, Lisa.
Just the reactions of my players are hilarious enough. It makes it all worthwhile.
But yes, I take your point of like everyone should try it once because
Absolutely.
it is a very different experience.
Well,
Yeah.
just to understand how and what the DM goes through, planning these
Yeah.
games, making sure everything is like intact, in order, organization, making sure all the players get there, what they can and can't do. DMs go through a lot, and if you actually be a DM, you get to see it from their perspective how hard they work.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, I leave it off on you really should at least be a DM once in your life.
Yeah, it definitely makes you a better player if you've ever DM'd.
Yeah.
Because you understand, being on the other side of that DM screen, and why, like, the joys of watching your players interact with each other, too, and interact with the world, and, sort of, I will say that one thing that I do love is, like, watching people talk amongst themselves to try to figure out how to solve a problem that I created. Yes.
Just there's a little pyramid triangle with your hands like behind the DM screen. Yes.
Yes. So Azif, do you got any pluggables to plug?
Pluggables, no. As far as I'm concerned, I'm still your loyal artist as always.
You can still plug yourself because you're actually in the show credits.
Oh, I am? Oh, okay. Yeah, I plugged myself because I'm here and because I like these two. I really like you guys a lot, so...
Oh, shucks. You got an Instagram? You got a Twitter? What do you got? Where can people find you on the internets?
For Instagram, it's Azif On Q. I gotta tell you though, I'm a really lazy artist. The only time I actually get off my butt is when I actually specifically to make art for you guys. So
This is our indentured art servant.
I'm a lazy loyal artist. I can tell you that much.
Fantastic. Well,
Alrighty,
I
wrap it up?
think with that, yeah. Thank you so much. Like, this is fun. I whenever I make it back to Florida, I'd love to sit in on one of your games.
Oh,
His games are wacky.
Yeah, no, I love a wacky game.
Alright, I'll hold you to it. Mostly, if you really not that combat focused, more puzzle.
No, I love that. I love having to strain my 3 brain cells.
Saying my alligator brain must make things simple for myself and the players.
Alright.
Exactly. The alligator brain, it's a special brand of lizard brain, only for Floridians.
Right. Well, thanks again for having me.
Alright.
Thank you.
And Lisa,
And-
give us the outro.
To you, our audience, our dearest darlings and lovelies, and what are we gonna call our listeners? Little oopsies? I don't know. We'll figure it out. What? I don't know. Listen, the coffee hasn't hit yet, okay? Goodbye. Oops All Dragons is a group effort. Our show is edited by Noel Hernandez, our theme was composed by Brendan Lyons, and our logo art is by Azif On Q. Links to more of their work and their social media will be in the show notes.